Hey, welcome back, everyone, to Lesser Known Operators on the Go. As always, I'm Nicholas Allen. This is the condensed episode for Michael Meegan, also known as R.A.N.G.E.R.U on Instagram. He's a 3rd Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment guy. Now he is an ROTC instructor down at Texas A&M. Links to his socials in the show description. As always, we are brought to you by Precision Wellness Group and Dr. Taylor Bosley. Get your hormones checked. TRT, HRT, testosterone, peptides, one-stop shop down in Southern Pines, North Carolina, telemedicine, and in person. We are also brought to you by Alpha Elite Performance. Get your supplements for the gym. Use code LKO15 at checkout. I do appreciate you guys. Please remember to like, subscribe, share, comment. Let me know what you think of this new format.
But we've enjoyed a lot of success with our Ranger Challenge team here at Texas A&M. When I came in 2022, we went to the Sandhurst International Military Skills Competition that's hosted in West Point in spring of 2023. And we won the ROTC Cup, which is essentially like a national championship. It's all the ROTC schools from across the country. Each one of the brigades sends 2 representatives from ROTC. So you'd have 8 brigades, right? So there's 16 teams. I want to make sure I get this right. Yeah. There's 16 teams from ROTC that are going to show up to this thing annually if they qualify. You have to place in the top 2 in each one of your brigades to go to the competition. Some of these brigades have 45 schools in that brigade. So just to qualify for the competition alone, says something about your program. And then also at this competition are the West Point competition teams, which are stupidly good, and they host it. So, it's their comp, right? And then the other service academies will send teams, and then you'll have international teams that will send their academies as well. So the thing about the international academies is their cadets were prior enlisted soldiers. They had to be. So it's like honest to God soldiers from these other countries will show up and compete at this competition as well. Now you can win the whole thing overall, which is like the Sandhurst Sabre, which means you're one of one and you won it. You can be the best international team. That's another prize that can be won there. You can have most lethal. You can have the best individual leadership award awardee as well. And then there's the ROTC Cup. And then the top 5 teams in the competition also medal. So there's a 1st through 5th place medal because there's 50 teams that are going to show up to this thing every single year. So in 23, Texas A&M, our Ranger Challenge team took 1st in ROTC. We were 4th overall. And then so we had won ROTC national title. It was our first national title win at that competition since 2016. Then in 2024, we did it again. So we went back to back, won it again, and placed 4th overall. And we had designs on going and doing that for a 3rd year and attempting to win the whole competition this last year. It didn't go quite the way we wanted it to. We wound up with a 5th place finish and wound up actually taking 2nd in ROTC. The University of Minnesota had an incredible team. They put it together. Hats off to them. I don't have anything else to say other than we got beat. So we have designs on fixing that this year and returning back to our rightful spots. But we're not going to get it back without hard work and dedication. So, our Ranger Challenge kids are, I don't think I've ever seen them so fired up and focused. So we're ready and rearing to compete this year. But I know Trevor's going to do a great job with those guys while I'm running Rudder's company.
And that's everybody. Everybody's invited, not just your guys' senior military academies. That's everybody.
Yeah. So like I said, each one of the brigades, you got to qualify your top 2, right? So out of 1st Brigade was the last couple of years, it was us and VMI were on a hot streak for qualifying. VMI actually had won the brigade competition at least 2 years in a row when I first got here. And then we finally won our brigade competition this last year in pretty dominant fashion, if I'm being honest, but the first time that we had won that competition in 10 years. So, very excited about that. And like I said, it's really cool to see these guys and gals do what they do, right? It's like a little bit of combination of everything you love about sports and everything you love about the military kind of all coming to one spot. And that's Ranger Challenge for ours. It's really cool. The trust between the officer and NCO corps, and the enlisted and officer relationships. I wanted to go to a place where I would be able to make a positive impact on those young future officers and show them what competent and confident NCOs can look like, make them understand that NCOs can function at a high level, and they should be held accountable to do their job and accomplish their tasks so that officers don't have to accomplish their tasks, and
I like what you
allow
did there.
yeah, absolutely. And allow those NCOs to exercise mission command and go get the job done. And I wanted to show them that. I wanted them to understand that, like, no, you shouldn't bogart everything. You shouldn't make the whole plan yourself without ever having, gotten to know your NCOs, understand how they perform, put them in positions to perform so that you can assess what it is you can actually do, and have that good relationship. I feel like, ROTC as a whole, you either come out as a young leader with two pretty standard understandings of how this next thing's going to go. It's either A, enlisted or trash, NCOs are idiots, so don't trust any of them. You're going to have to do everything yourself and they're going to screw you over. Or B, it's, hey, blindly trust your NCOs, be quiet and they'll take care of you. When the answer is neither of those, it's always somewhere in the middle, right? And we have to be discerning about these things. The officer NCO relationship and the NCO corps and the leadership that needs to happen in the Army, down and in, is so crucial. And I want young leaders to understand like what that means to go there, allow their men to perform, and divest that authority to allow them to perform or mess it up. And then you capture it, you bring it back to center, you AR it, you try to fix it, and you hand it back to them, and allow your formations to work for you, right? Instead of everything being top down, no one's going to do their job unless I say so, and all this other stuff. It's too much for these young 21, 22-year-old kids. You're handing them a platoon and you're expecting them just to run it, as the central decision maker and the authority there, because you're a leader and these guys are not. You're from college and they're not. So, and by the time you're done with Bullock, you'll be ready to run a platoon. Bullshit. That's not how that works, right? So I want to give them the skills necessary to understand the beast that they're actually walking into, and understand that leadership is a people job. It's a people skills thing. The Army is a people business, and you got to understand where your role is, where your guys' roles are at, and how to get the most and best out of each other. And that's honestly what we want to produce at our program is leaders, not robots. It's like, Mike, you have found a way to fuck up every single other thing you've gotten your hands on up to this point, and you have an opportunity right here, right now, and it hurts and it sucks and it's scary, but damn it, don't let it go. Don't let it go. Just ride this damn dragon to the end of it, and we'll see how it shakes out. I promise you, it's better than living in your car. It's better than, going back to a broken, shitty situation. It's better than having no aim in life whatsoever. It's better than the path that you chose for yourself previously because you didn't want to do the right thing. You didn't want to do the hard thing to set up for the things that you said you wanted to do at one point in time. You found a way to mess that up. Don't mess this up. And when the dust settled, I had my tan beret in hand, and one of the proudest moments of my life. And I got down to battalion and, back down to square one, back down to the bottom of the rung again, and earned everything that I had in that organization. Good, bad, and different. Not the best Ranger, far from it, but everything that I had in that place was earned. And it's a very special thing to be a part of a place like that where shit was handed to you And whatever it is you have at the end of it was because you put in the work, you got developed by the people around you, somebody took a chance on you, you didn't mess it up, and you did what you were supposed to do. And I wouldn't trade that for the world.
And the way you described it, right? People say you can't let it become your whole life. When it's over, you got to let it go. Fuck, would you want to let it go? Like, you would go accomplish some of that shit, and then you try to let it go. You try to get it out of your mind. When you finally accomplish something that you're proud of yourself, you prove to yourself you're that person. You put yourself through all that pain and all that suffering, and you sacrificed all your time and your energy and your well-being, and you get what you want. And it's so rewarding that you can't describe it to anybody. And even the people that did it along with you, they got a different reason for doing it, and it means something else to them. And so I try to discourage people when they're like, you got to move on. Like, fuck you. No, I don't. Like, I don't have to move on for shit. As long as I'm not hurting other people, I can still keep living this. I love doing that. There's nothing in the civilian world that's going to even come close to it. Why the fuck do I got to move on? Like, I can't find anything on this side of things that's comparable and that's safe. That's safe for me and other people. That's not going to hurt anybody. I'm not going to find anything like that. So yeah, and the way you describe it, obviously people have a hard time letting go and getting out of that life and things like that because, God, I accomplished something. I'm proud of me. I'm who I think I was. You're not. You didn't even get out of the first peg, right? You're just in the first peg, and they're just twisting it until you get right back to the starting point. You don't even get to peg 2 because you get handed the beret, or you get get whatever color it is, or you get the tab or whatever. That's day 1. You're in this limbo now of, okay, I'm going to be happy, but now I got to go start over. I got to go hit the ropes. I got to go prove to these guys that I belong to be there. It's the earning the green beret isn't the hard thing. Earning the right to wear your beret every day is. And now you get to that point. And what I said earlier, and the letting go and being involved in your life, it's just listening to you describe it and what you said there. Some of the things I've been thinking lately, just reminiscing about what it is, like what it was, what it is, and what I'm doing now. I just like hearing it. It's nice. I believe it was 5 different colors of crayon, and the guy couldn't learn the Ranger Creed, so he had to do every other letter a different color until he wrote out the Ranger Creed. And I guess it took him forever because he kept fucking up the order. That's the most diabolical one that didn't involve either of those that I've ever heard.
Take your time.
So
take your time. That definitely I have done the Ranger Creed in a different color, not each letter, but each line was a different color with colored pencils.
So that's a common one.
Yeah, it's happened before. Yeah, that's a good time taker right there. Yeah, absolutely. Or a word in the dictionary, right? To write the definition of a word in the dictionary. I think one time it was like bear. It was like all the different definitions of bear. And it was like had to write it out verbatim, right? X amount of times, or, it was just taking time. Those creeds are definitely diabolical. My class, this is a funny little story, but like we were so stupid. So it was like we had X amount of Ranger Creeds we had to write. And if you have to write like 10 Ranger Creeds, that's going to be like all night. That's going to take you all night long to do that, right? Because, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of like 237 words. So if you write 10 of them, you're writing over 2,000 words. So, and you're already tired and, you're on lockdown. This was like pre-RASP this happened. So somebody was like, hey man, I'm going to write one. And then there's a copier that's in the hallway next to staff duty.
They'll never figure that out.
They'll never figure it out. So we turned in this stack of, Ranger Creeds. And for the record, I never thought this was going to fly, right? I was in the formation. I was standing out there on the rocks and I'm like, there's absolutely no freaking way this flies. And I'm just sitting there. I'm like, I know this is going to go south. Hands a stack of papers, door shuts. It's not even 40 seconds goes by. Door flies open. You think I'm fucking stupid, man? Yeah. And then it was on. Then it was on.
Hit the ropes.
We were at Cardiac Hill. Actually, we went to Cardiac Hill, and Went down there for about like a good hour and a half of fun that morning, and then still had to write the creeds that night. So it was just again that lesson, and you never have time to do it right the first time, but you seem to have time to do it wrong multiple times.
Starting out, I mean, that gap that you had between your day one in regiment and getting your Ranger tab, that fucking sucks.
Yeah,
That whole stretch.
yeah, it does. But I mean, it was also good. It sucked, but it was also some of the best times of my life. I mean, if you think about it, and it sucked, but I try to tell the cadets right now, I'm like, you guys are in good times right now. I know it doesn't seem like you are. You got classes, you got early morning formation, you're around your best friends all the time. You guys are doing goofy Army and university type stuff. You're going to football games. You're going to late night McDonald's runs. We're going out to the field. You're camping under the stars. You don't have a mortgage. You don't have a family to provide for right now. You don't have any of the millions of stressors that come with just living life beyond the stage you're at right now. And I think back on those times of being a private, even though like my days were sometimes hellacious and definitely like I felt like there was anywhere else in the world I would have rather been in that moment, right? Or the mistakes and the tough days that you had as a team leader, gun team leader, or a team leader, or the times as a more senior NCO, you stepped on your crank and you didn't do this thing quite well. You had a bad morning at PT or whatever it is. Those times were good times, right? Because they're so special. And I would like people to realize it more because first off, we all know that we get one life. And at the end of the day, we have a finite number of minutes in that life. A lot of us aren't going to age gracefully, right? So we're going to get to a point where, we're going to be old, right? We're not going to be able to do those things anymore. And we also know that we're going to get to a point where people are not really interested in what it is we have to say because that's just the fact of things. So, and I hate to admit it, but people get old, they just they become more tolerated than anything else, right? And so these stories that you have and these pictures and these moments that you have now where you're going through things that seem like it's terrible, seem like it's awful, you're going to wish you could get your legs that tired and your heart feels like it's going to blow up from running and rucking and exercise. You're going to wish that you could go into the field with your buddies and be dog ass tired. You're going to wish that you could see one more sunrise on the bird on the way back. You're going to wish for those things and you're going to remember them. You're going to hold them dear. So just remember that you're in much better times than you may think that you are when you're going through the process. Just learn to love it because before you know it, it's over. It's over like that. And you're going to think back on it. So be thankful for those days.
I said you're making Rangers, and especially with your content, right? It's good. I think so. I think it's good. And what is it? It's R.A.N.G.E.R.U, right? And as I said, whether you know or you don't know, I find out when people message me, I'm so naive. I'm like, nobody's listening to me. And then people message me like, what do you, this? I love this. And like, how do you feel now that, because up to a certain point, you don't believe any of that stuff. And then somebody reminds you that soldiers or people in the 82nd or people in Korea are watching you and paying attention to what you're saying, how you're saying it, and they're going to be basing decisions for their life on what you're doing. When did that hit you, and how do you feel about that?
What's so crazy is I would get DMs. I got a DM from an NCO when it really hit home with me. There was a particular NCO that was successful at Ranger School after being unsuccessful at Ranger School the first try. And he had listened to my podcast. He'd listened to me break down the patrolling episodes out of the Ranger Handbook and taken in some of the content from Ranger-U. And he reached out to me to let me know that he was successful and that he got his tab and he had a picture of him getting his tab pinned on and everything else. And this is a person that didn't really know me from Adam. And then there were other people that, hey, Sarn, I got a question about this. I got a question about that. I mean, I frequently get messaged on R.A.N.G.E.R.U for, the most mundane questions about something that is very 10 level skill, a question about Ranger handbook, a question about what somebody should do with their career. I mean, I never thought that I would be in the positions to mentor or even begin to start to mentor people in the military, wanting to come into the military at the NCO level, the junior officer level, the cadet level, you name it. But they're interested in what it was that I had to say, because they were hungry for that knowledge, for that development, to understand things a little bit better. Going back to that theme we've been carrying for this show, I recognize that they want to win too. And they're trying to do the things to put themselves in that position. And if I can even help a little bit, that makes me feel good about what it is that I'm doing.
So your formation's getting bigger. Technology's aiding in that. And we said earlier, you see it in the formation, the greater formation is in the Army as a whole. So how do you feel about there have to be lacking in some area on their end to go to you for a need? I'm not saying it's bad, just, so there's the other side of that. Where's their NC? The physical stuff's easy. We just soldier your way through it. Administrate, you can get buried in paperwork and I'm never going to claw my way out of this. And I'm never going to figure this out. Just dragging heavy shit through the woods. Oh, this is easy. Speaking of dragging heavy shit around, what is the Ranger Challenge? Because that's something they were talking about down at Virginia Tech. And who all does it? Is it you said that first brigade thing, but is everybody involved in it as well?
Yeah, so Ranger Challenge is like the varsity sport of ROTC, if you will. So it's an opportunity for cadets that are physically fit enough, skilled enough, all those sorts of things to compete against other universities and other institutions in military skills competitions, right? So our Ranger Challenge team is nested within Rudder's company. So Rudder's company is really the base from which we draw our best and brightest to go and compete in that. You have an 11 personnel team. You have 9 males and 2 females mandatory. And then you have 1 alternate cadet for your 12th person that you can bring to comp, because injuries happen, things like that, right? And essentially it's competing at who is the best at 10 level tasks, who's the best when they're tired, hungry, and they have to, construct some sort of weird, either move a bunch of equipment from one side of a field to another, or get in a Zodiac boat and paddle around a lake and get it back quickly, or do grenade ID and throw grenades and land navigation, shooting, pistol, rifle, all those kinds of things like that. So it's sort of like a sawed off Best Ranger. It's more like a sprint, right? As opposed to Best Ranger being very much more like a marathon over the multiple days of that competition, right? But it's some of the best professional development, in my opinion, that a young cadet can get, because it teaches you so much about yourself, your ability to learn, push yourself, whether or not you are going to dig deep, what kind of competitor you are, how are you under pressure. And it's been really fun.
Like now coming out of Ranger Battalion, and I mean, there used to be more Ranger Battalions as well. Now there's just the 3.
Yes.
But this was 2nd Ranger Battalion, Rudder's Rangers. How's that feel, just being tied into this program now?
I got to tell you, it's actually really cool. There's not another place I would rather be coming out if I had to go into an assignment as an instructor out of the 75th than coming to Rudder's company, right? It was crazy too, because when I was being interviewed for the job, they were kind of talking about yeah, it's a specialty company, Rudder's company. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I definitely know there's a Rudder in Ranger history. I'm like, there's Camp Rudder. I'm like, is it? And I'm thinking to myself, I was like, is it named after Earl Rudder? Right. And I was just like, okay, cool. Sounds good. Whatever. And then we get to College Station to move into our home, and the Highway 6, that's literally right by my house, it's Earl Rudder Freeway. And I was like, Okay. I'm like, all right. And then but I didn't know anything about the history of Earl Rudder with the university, the fact that he has a statue right outside our building where we do a lot of our commissionings and our first salutes, where we'll have events where Rudder's company finishes up our Ranger testing every single year, where we do, it's almost like a Ranger stakes and an E3B combo, right? A lot of 10 level tasks, but our kids compete for the Rudder's Diamond, right? So it's almost like an E3B and a tab, if you will, for the organization, right? And they get to wear it on their hat, symbolizing their ability and proficiency, and it marks them as being able to be a leader in the organization moving forward. We culminate that event at Rudder statue. And it's really cool. It is really cool. I'm glad that you brought that up and gave a nod to that, because the campus here at Texas A&M, it's steeped in Ranger history. It's steeped in Earl Rudder history. Rudder Tower is the exact same height as the cliffs at Point du Hoc. When they were built here on campus, Rudder Tower, which is right next to the statue, is exactly the same height as the cliffs that were scaled at Point du Hoc. And it's really neat when we get to have the 75th recruiting cell. They've come out a couple of times, done PT with us, and come to our branch day stuff the last couple of years. It's neat to have them out and kind of clue them into that history, and they go, oh, wow, that's neat. I didn't know that, And so like, it's just really cool to have that connection with this program. And if I had it my way, obviously I would love to have somebody with a tab and scroll in this position in perpetuity, because I feel like it's sort of like this little baby, this legacy, like this little thing that like is I think it's very important. And I think it would be really cool to see the 75th be able to keep custody of it. But again, that's their prerogative, as far as all that goes. But it would be really neat to see this as like a preferenced assignment to come here and run this program, because I think it would pay great dividends for the unit. For example, two of the guys that were seniors my first year here, I wrote their letters of recommendation. Actually, three are heading over there now, and two of them are going to RASP 2 in November. They're going through that selection in November to go take their shot at serving in the 75th Ranger Regiment. And I think that's incredibly amazing.
I got my first taste over at Virginia Tech, and they explained to me that you guys over at Texas A&M, so it's the military academies, and then it's Virginia Tech and Texas A&M are like 1A, and then it's different after that. Is there anybody else that's lumped in with you guys in Virginia Tech?
Yeah, so Texas A&M and Virginia Tech are both what is considered to be senior military colleges in the ROTC world. In addition to that, there's also Virginia Military Institute, the Citadel, the University of North Georgia, and Norwich, which is a school up in the Northeast. So I believe that's a grand total of 6 there for the senior military colleges. And then there's 4 additional junior military colleges that also got lumped into our brigade, which is 1st Brigade, United States Army Cadet Command. As fate would have it, though, with the timing of this podcast, 1st Brigade's actually getting disbanded, and we're getting moved back to our regional alignment for our brigades, because 1st Brigade was actually headquartered in Fort Knox, Kentucky, regardless of where the senior military colleges were regionally, because of fiscal issues or what have you, or decisions that are being made well above my level. They decided to go ahead and disband 1st Brigade and put those schools back into where they would be regionally. But they are considered senior military colleges because of the mission that they have to achieve as far as commissioning every single year. And then because they also carry a Corps of Cadets at each one of these colleges. So because there's a dedicated Corps of Cadets that exists at each one of these places, they're considered a senior military college.
What does that mean, a Corps of Cadets?
Right. So the Corps of Cadets could mean slightly different things depending on where you're at, but essentially it's a dedicated portion of the student body that is going to engage in, either going the route to commission through the Reserve Officer Training Corps, or they're going to adhere to, the core standards, like almost like in junior ROTC when you're in high school. You're not going to commission right out of high school, obviously, and become an officer. You can't, but you're going to go through the motions. You're going to do the thing. You're going to put on the uniform. You're going to adhere to the conduct and do all that other stuff. And there are kids that want to do that at the college level without necessarily contracting into the military. Full disclosure from me, that doesn't make much sense to me, but some kids like to do it. So, for example, at Texas A&M, about 40% of the Corps of Cadets, which is a student body of nearly 3,000 kids, they will commission either into the Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, Space Force, something like that. About 60% of those kids do not commission out of college. They do their 4 years in the Corps of Cadets. They put on the uniform. They adhere to the standards there of the university, like paramilitary, right? But then they graduate and then they go on with their civilian lives. So there you have it. It's kind of like you can go frat or you can go Corps of Cadets, right?
I didn't think those numbers would be that way. 1,500 out of 3,000-ish don't commission into the military. Now, some of those go 3-letter agency, or they're looking for a bolster in their on the resume and things like that, or to look better for a certain job, I was told. But that's I wouldn't expect it to be that lopsided or for that many people, because, and the reason I say this for people listening is this is like 5 years of basic training that they're going through, and it just is continuous.
Yeah. Yeah. For some, it's definitely choose your own adventure at the level here at the university, right? So you can, go and have your Corps Cadets experience. You can go choose to do the ROTC thing and contract and commission, and you can do simultaneous membership program, or SMP, where you're in the Guard and going to college at the same time. That's a very popular route for kids to get their college paid for and do all that. Or you can, go as hard as you want, tip of the spear, if you will, of ROTC, and go into a specialty unit or go out and compete for Ranger Challenge or something like that, which is more of the space I live in and exist in, and what I do with the kids here at Texas A&M. But again, it's a choose your own experience kind of, and choose your own journey kind of experience there at our school and other schools as well. Yeah. So Rudder's company, at different times and different decades fluctuated in size, right? At certain points in times, it was very exclusive, very small. It was more like a platoon size kind of deal. When I got to A&M in 2022, you were talking about a Rudder's company that would be north of 150, it'd be like 160, 180. And then when we did some recruiting over the last couple of years, we actually got the ranks when we stood up the company to over 200. We were looking at like 220 members of this company. In Army ROTC at Texas A&M collectively, you're looking at about 600 cadets across all the programs. So that's our freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior program. So, Rudder's company was accounting for a good amount, over a third at that point in time. It's interesting you asked that question, because this year we're actually instituting something new and different. We were talking about a minute ago what an organization's willing to tolerate, right? Over the last couple of years, we've been moving in this direction of making our members earn their positions in the company. Right. Previously, it was more like cadets were, I would like to be a platoon sergeant. I would like to be a PL, and we would interview for certain staff positions, but we didn't really interview for the platoon leadership so much, or so much for our observers, trainers, mentors, OTMs, right? These would be seniors that have gone to advanced camp, ROTC, and then they become like trainers for our company. Bottom line up front, it was more like, hey, I want to do this. Okay, you're going to do this. Caused some issues in like, well, I'll just ask the question. If something is handed to you, right? Like, how much investment do you really have in it?
People who win the lottery aren't happy after a year. So I'll go with that answer.
There you go. Okay. So it was like lapses in understanding what that position really meant, the buy-in for that position, to really work hard for it, right? It's like anything, right? If my kids break their toys all the time, right? And they leave them laying around, all that stuff. It's because it was handed to them. like the mama and papa bought it for them. We bought it for them. They don't really appreciate it. They didn't have to go through any kind of hardship to really earn that thing. And that's just inherently human nature, right? And when your kid actually has to do something to earn it, then they're very proud of it. They want to tell all their friends about it. They're like proud they accomplished that thing. And just like, with yourself going through selection and earning your beret, and me going through mine, and I still got my beret hanging up, behind me over there, right? It's something that we're inherently proud of because we had to toil and sweat to earn it. That's the change we're making this year with Rudder's company with our returners. We're actually putting them through a little bit of an indoctrination phase for 2 weeks. And they're going to earn their positions. They're going to showcase that they're the best people for the job. And then we will select them into those positions. And then we are capping the company at 150 cadets, which means that at our very first Army fitness test, we are racking and stacking the top 150 scores. And if you are 151, thanks for coming out. But we're going to get the kind of population of people that really want to be there and are going to strive to be there. Because what we found in, the recent years was we would start up with these big company over 200, but by the end of the year, we would wind up attriting down to about 130, 140 anyway. And you would have this nucleus of kids at about 130, 140 kids that really wanted to be there, could be there, were dedicated to it. There was a lot more people that thought they were, but it was really just kind of fluff, and it was a waste of their time and a waste of ours, to be honest with you. NCOs are supposed to do the sergeant's business. We're supposed to train the formation, maintain accountability. We wear a lot of hats. We're a leader, we're a coach. In some ways, we're a big brother, sometimes a father figure, sometimes the only positive role model that some of these people have in their life from time to time. I don't want to spill the beans too much about this particular story because it's of a very personal nature from something that happened last year, but essentially I found myself in a position where I didn't think I would actually have to be in ROTC, and very much a real life was on the line in terms of like which direction this would go for this young cadet. And fortunately, we were able to give him enough support to where he went on to camp this summer, actually, funny enough, when everything looked like it was just going to be over for him, and was very successful and has decided to continue on his path, and I'm excited for him. But I think with all those hats, right, the way all the ones you got to wear, right, that big brother or that father figure, if you will, for, your formations, I think the greatest charge that we have as NCOs is to prepare our formations. And this is also goes back to me being a father in the home too. This is something that I've had to really do some reflection on quite a bit as of recently. Remember, we were talking about giving your formation what they need always, not always what you want, but what they need. I think what it is they need that development, and they need to be prepared for a life without you. You need to make them strong enough, durable enough, resilient enough, skilled enough to be able to take on the challenges that come ahead when you're not there to catch it anymore or hold their hand anymore. And you want to protect them from it. You want to catch it. You want to, let me do this because you're going to mess it up, or let me, do all those kinds of things like that. It's like when your kids, my little kids, I got 2 little girls. I got a third one on the way. It's like they got to make their own peanut butter and jelly, and they got to make a mess in the kitchen eventually. Right. My mom doesn't come make me a sandwich anymore. I learned how to do that. I wouldn't be a very highly functioning adult if I had never, made a mess or two. Right. And I think that's important as NCOs and in the Army in general, that I think our NCO Corps and our enlisted have kind of lost. I think leaders at every level have kind of lost this. We've become so avoidant of risk that we've prioritized that over development and actually seeking opportunities to be excellent. We're more worried about how do we not get in trouble? How do we avoid and mitigate? It's like their favorite word, the risk. And it's like, you can't do that forever, because if you do, and when you do, and when the right people leave, now you're in a situation which I do believe, unfortunately, taking off the rose-colored glasses for our military. And these are the conversations I like to have with my cadets. Let them know just how much we're kind of hurting right now in terms of actual competent, confident formations that are ready to do the job. There's a lot of growing and a lot of learning and a lot of meat that's still on the bone that our formation's got to get back to. And I see it, and they need to see it too. So that's what we try to do out of the program. Make them ready, develop them, even though it's a little bit painful.
And I'm always curious everybody's answer on how you deal with the weight of knowing that you do hold influence over what people are going to do.
Yeah. So really just being cognizant of it this year. I mean, when I started R.A.N.G.E.R.U, I had no clue. I never thought that I would be north of like 1,000 people that would even care to take a look at what it is I was doing over there. I had a podcast before R.A.N.G.E.R.U that was a college football centric podcast, and I couldn't get anybody to listen to that. And I just enjoyed doing college football, but it was juxtaposed to my profession, so it was very hard to keep up with, and I didn't like some of the things of the sport. I digress. I don't want to get into it. But my only experience as far as listenership and followership and stuff like that was that, which was very small potatoes, right? So my whole thing was like, there is not a single person that's really going to care about what I'm saying, but it'd be cool if I could get my cadets to listen to these episodes and help them out a little bit. I was a little wrong about that. It definitely took off a lot more than expected, and we're about to hit 15,000 followers, and R.A.N.G.E.R.U is just a little over 2 years old. And I definitely haven't been playing all of the social media hacks to try to grow stuff. It's just, everything is just very organic and very, very authentic, the way that I post it and the way that I do things, right? As far as the responsibility of influencing those around me, I have to be a little more cognizant now of how I say stuff or what it is I say, because now I am somebody that's looked at to represent, even though my profile's not exactly a representation of the DoD or Texas A&M. In the acceptable use policy for social media, it basically says that as long as I am a uniformed person, it extends regardless. So spiciness in the comments section, all that kind of stuff like that, I got to avoid. But it would be stuff that I probably need to avoid anyway if I want to be that like professional representation of myself that's going to really make an impact on people. But the main thing is this, is like, if your intentions are pure, you don't overextend and try to dabble into an arena you're not familiar with. Try to be like a snake oil salesman or, some kind of like imposter, like we talk about. Like, if there's something I'm not familiar with, I'm going to go seek answers on it, but I'm probably not going to just like post about it as if I know what I'm talking about, if that makes sense. The things that I teach and try to impress upon the population are things that I am familiar with, things that are practical, and things that I know work, and things that I know that are just kind of general knowledge, skills, and ability that people in the formation should understand. And then as far as the content side of the house, whether that's my videos or some of the leadership posts or what have you, I want to try to do a good job of highlighting fitness and lethality and skills and commitment to the profession over TikTok dances, trendy things, these silly challenges or what have you, that I just feel like paint our force in a unserious light, an unprofessional light. It literally is, in so many instances and examples I could bring up, but I'll just hold my peace on it. And so I want to be the antithesis to that. If you are about wanting to be professional and serious about and a good steward of the profession, then by all means, you'll probably enjoy my stuff. If not, then maybe it's not for you, but it's okay.